What is going on, friends? This is Matt Carter, that YouTube Realtor, and today I'm going to be talking about a subject that we get this question a lot in our industry, and I've even seen some commercials on TV about some revolutionary real estate brokerages that are tackling this topic, and it's whether I should buy or sell first. Now, I'm going to go into a couple different things. This will be just the pros and cons of both. It'll really depend on your situation. So you're going to make sure that you talk to your realtor that you're working with, your specialists, and your professionals in the industry to make sure that you make the right decision for you. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, what is the market actually dictating right now? Are we in a seller's market? Are we in a buyer's market? Are we in a balanced market? And in the last little while, if you've been following the market, if you've been looking to get into it, these last few years have been a very strong seller's market. That means that sellers are able to put their house up for sale. There are tons of buyers looking to purchase homes, and homes are going really quickly and for a lot over asking price. So right now, there is no issue with selling your home. It takes relatively a short period of time. There are some situations, depending on the property, it may take a little bit longer, but for the average home, it's going to take a relatively short period of time to sell that property. You're really going to need to take this into account when you are looking to buy and sell your home. If you're looking to buy, you're definitely going to want to prepare for it taking a little bit of time. This could take, I've seen people anywhere from a week all the way up to going on a year looking for a house if they're looking for something really specific. So it really depends on your situation. It's definitely going to take, on average, longer to purchase a home in this seller's market than it would to sell it. And inverse is, once we get back into a balanced or a buyer's market, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to take much longer for you to sell your home than it is going to be to buy a home, because there's going to be more inventory in the market to choose from, and potentially it's going to be a lot quicker to find that house exactly what you are looking for. The next thing you're going to want to consider, whether buying or selling first, is trying to line up your closing dates. So right now in the seller's market that we're in, basically as a buyer, if you're looking to submit a competitive offer, you're going to want to try to line up the closing date, which is your move-in date and possession date of that property, as close as possible to when the seller wants to have their closing date. This is generally based upon something else they're buying. So you don't have too much wiggle room if you're in a multiple offer competitive situation in order to negotiate that date too much. Sometimes there's a little bit of leniency, but usually you got to be pretty bang on that date in order to have an opportunity. So if you are looking to buy a property first, you're going to want to make sure that you line up with their selling date, with their closing date. And then conversely, when you're going to go sell your home, you're going to want to try to line that up to what works for you with the closing date that you already have predetermined by that seller. Conversely, if we're going the other way around and you're trying to sell your home first, depending on what market you're in, you may be able to dictate when the closing date is. It could be a little ways down the line. It could be as short as you want it. But then you need to look at that when you are going to look to purchase a property. You're going to want to try to make those closing dates line up as closely as possible. And if you're doing that in this market, it may be pretty tough, because you're going to be trying to get as close to that seller's closing date as possible. So if you set your closing date at a different time than when the seller that you're offering on their house for, you may have trouble lining up those closing dates. Another thing you want to consider is time to do renovations. If you are planning on purchasing a property that's going to need some work done to it, or you just want to do some certain things that maybe you don't want to live through construction, or maybe you're okay with that, that's something you're going to have to take into account. Again, this is going to kind of go back to that closing date and where you want to line that up to see if you want to be living through that construction or not, depending on the sale of your home. So it's all case by case. It's all dependent on your specific situation and where your buyer and closing and selling closing dates line up, as well as whether you want to be present in that house and fully moved out of your old house for those renovations, or if you want there to be some overlap and you have both the properties so you don't have to live through the renovations. And that leads me right into the next point with potentially having to get a bridge loan. So if you don't know what a bridge loan is, a bridge loan is a loan from your lender when you have two properties being held by you at the same time. Most people don't have the financial capabilities in order to afford two homes at the same time, two mortgages. So if you close on a property before your home sells and you technically are in possession of two properties, you'll have to get a loan from the lender in order to afford both mortgages, and you'll have to pay the interest on that loan during the period of time where you are carrying both those properties. This could be a pretty substantial amount of money depending on the amount of time that you're holding both those properties for. So you're going to want to make sure, if you're doing those renovations we talked about, or if you're just doing it in order to have a smoother move so you can move over a span of a week rather than a couple of days, you're going to want to make sure that you have all those finances set out and accounted for before going into it, because it could be a significant amount of money by the time it's all said and done if it's, 2, 3, 4 weeks going down there if you're carrying both properties. The next one up in considering whether you should buy or sell first is knowing exactly how much your property is worth and what you can afford. So in this market, in this seller's market, when primarily people are buying a home first, their home's value, which is ultimately going to go towards the purchase of their new home, is basically an estimation of what it's going to be, what it's going to sell for. Nobody really knows exactly how much your house is going to sell for. That's what real estate agents like myself are around for, to give you the best idea possible. But you just never know exactly what's going to happen in this market, and who knows what it's going to be like once you do end up finding that property and go and sell your house. Given the way everything's gone in the last little while, housing prices have only gone up, so people generally are in a better situation by the time they go to sell than when they originally started out in their buying. But you never know what can happen. More inventory could hit the market. The market could just shift and change into a situation where you may not get as much money for the house as you originally intended. So you always want to make sure you're budgeting for that, not maxing out your spending when you are going to purchase that property. Have a little bit of a reserve there just in case you don't get exactly what you want for your house at the end of the day. Conversely, if you go and sell your property first and it sells for $700,000, you know exactly what you can apply to your next home purchase and how to budget accordingly. There's no guessing game there. The only thing and the only variable you're going to have to account for is the way that the pricing and houses are going. So if you wait too long, you could potentially get priced out of the market if if the market continues to go and what you can afford is no longer in your grasp anymore. Or conversely, you could also get into a situation where you're paying a little bit less for the house than what you sold your house for, and could be a great situation for yourself. So my final point for today, and generally what happens in this market, is you may feel rushed in buying a house if you do sell it first. In a seller's market like we're in right now, if you go and sell your home, yes, you may know exactly what your house is going to sell for and what you can budget for, but you're going to have a closing date already picked out sometime in the future, and you're going to have that deadline of when you're going to have to move into the next property. So if you only have a couple months to find that house and close on it, that's a pretty tight deadline if you can't exactly find exactly what you're looking for. In this market, inventory can be pretty sparse, competition's really high, so you really don't know how long it's going to take you to find that property. If you do go down this route and you want to sell first, it's always a good idea to have a backup plan, to have somewhere you can stay if you don't end up finding a house, or if those closing dates don't line up exactly, whether it's family, friends, maybe you're going to find a short-term rental. We can definitely help with that as well. But you always want to make sure you're accounting for all that and planning accordingly, that it may be a possibility you are moving into a short-term option before you find that next property. Well, hopefully all that helps with you in making your decision where you should buy or sell first. In this market, in this seller's market, I generally am advising, about 95+% of the time to my clients in order to purchase a property first before selling theirs, just because it makes things quite a bit easier in terms of timeline. And that's generally what I find is the most stressful thing about the moving and the buying and selling process, is the timelines involved. The way things have been going, we can generally predict pretty accurately what your home is going to sell for, and if it takes a little bit longer, your home is only going to be worth more down the line based on the way things are going. So if you have any questions regarding this in your specific situation, please feel free to send them in the comments below or send me a message. through my email or text message. All that information is in the description below. And if you found any value in this content, make sure you pass it along to anybody else you think would value from it as well. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm to get this out to more people and help my channel grow. I love teaching everybody about different things of the real estate world. A lot of people don't have a lot of that knowledge, so I love informing people. Stay informed until my next video. I have them coming out every single week, more like this. So until then, take care.